I've been infatuated with Darcy for 7 years. It was as if I had been bewitched by a poisonous spell, completely obsessed. And my reputation was already in tatters. The day something happened to the Cornelius family, I went to find him. But I heard a friend ask him, "Miranda Cornelius is a well-known great beauty. Are you sure you won't marry her?" He exhaled a puff of smoke and said in a casual tone, "I've been bored with her for years." "What? Do you like her? How about lending her to you for a couple of days?" I stood outside the door with a pale face. But instead of crying and making a scene, I just turned around and left. Someone saw me. They urged Darcy to chase after me and coax me. But Darcy sat there as steady as a mountain, his voice disdainful and cold. "Why chase after her? She'll come back obediently after being left alone for a few days." Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. I stood outside the private room. From the slightly ajar door came the mocking laughter of Darcy's cronies. "Darcy, did the old man of the Cornelius family come to ask you for money last night? How dare he?" Sure enough, they're a low-class family that can't make it to the big stage. They thought that if their daughter clung to you tightly, their family would be firmly attached to the Clement family. I couldn't get through to Darcy's phone. I only found this club through the Instagram post of his friend. When I arrived, it was raining. I was completely soaked. As soon as the cold air blew, a sudden chill spread from the top of my head to my whole body. "Darcy, Miranda is a well-known great beauty. Are you sure you won't marry her? Although her status is too low to be considered, her face is definitely beyond reproach." Through the crack of the door, I saw Darcy sitting in the main seat, as usual wearing a white shirt. The light in the private room fell on him, as if giving him a filter. Lofty and cold, noble and precious, radiant and upright. It was the appearance I had always been infatuated with. But his answer was humiliating and heartbreaking. "I've been bored with her for years." He lit a cigarette, slowly exhaled a puff of white smoke, and said in a very casual tone, "What? Do you like her? How about lending her to you for a couple of days? I don't dare to mess with her. What if her infatuation shifts to me? She cries and makes a scene, even threatening to die if I so much as look at another woman. She's so unreasonable. Darcy can just endure this kind of hardship." Exactly. Who would want to court such bad luck? I stood outside the door with a pale face, and without crying or making a fuss, I turned around and left directly. Just then, a waiter pushed the door open to serve the dishes. The person sitting near the door of the private room saw me and quickly informed Darcy, "That woman looks a bit like Miranda. Could she have heard all our conversation? Darcy, why don't you go and coax her? Although Miranda isn't likable, she's still a girl after all." Darcy casually raised his eyelids and glanced at the corridor outside. He sat there as steady as a mountain, his voice disdainful and cold. "Why chase after her? She'll come back obediently after being left alone for a few days." Someone chimed in. "Yeah, after all, apart from Darcy, who else in City A would want her?" I stood in the elevator and looked at myself in the mirror. The expensive high-end dress was wrinkled. My delicate makeup was smudged. The princess hairstyle that was originally up was also disheveled. I was in a pitifully sorry state. However, there wasn't even the slightest ripple of emotion in my eyes. I've been infatuated with Darcy for 7 years. It was as if I had been bewitched by a poisonous spell, completely obsessed. I even abandoned my fiancé who I had been engaged to since childhood. I did all sorts of absurd things. My reputation was already completely ruined. I truly loved him. It turned out that he only saw me as a playmate for his amusement. Was it just because I didn't have a prominent family background like his circle of friends? His friends didn't hold back when they sneered at me. They haughtily criticized me, blamed me, and disliked me. Darcy never once defended me. In the past, my heart would ache terribly and I would be extremely sad. But today, I couldn't shed even a single tear. It turns out that love doesn't really fade away gradually. Instead, it suddenly disappears in a certain instant. After coming out of the club, while hailing a taxi at the entrance, I received a call from my mother. "Miranda, where have you run off to? Your father is on the verge of death." The rain in City A has never been this heavy. It was clearly the height of summer. Yet I felt a cold wind, mixed with the rain, seeping into my bones, freezing my nerves inch by inch, eroding my soul. I don't know how I managed to get to the hospital. In a daze, All I remember is that on that rainy day in City A, the traffic was extremely congested. The taxi couldn't move at all. It was pitch dark. I just ran and ran with all my might in the pouring rain. My mother was sitting at the door of the emergency room, all alone. Her expression was numb. There were still dried tears at the corners of her eyes. When she saw me, she questioned me. "Where on earth have you been? Your father has been calling your name all the time. Did you run off to find that Clement guy again? Why are you so cheap?" My mother's temper flared up, and she raised her hand to hit me. But she accidentally knocked over the thermos box on her lap. The dumplings inside spilled all over the floor. She immediately felt heartbroken and knelt on the ground, picking up the dumplings one by one and putting them back into the thermos box. "These dumplings were cooked by your father. He said you hadn't had dinner yet and insisted on going to the small kitchen to cook them for you." As soon as he scooped the dumplings out of the pot, he suddenly collapsed. "Miranda, although you're not our biological daughter, we've never treated you badly all these years. Darcy doesn't like you and turned a blind eye to the Cornelius family's plight. Don't go crawling back to him to be humiliated." I also knelt on the ground. My whole body was shaking. I only found out a few hours ago that my father had gone to see Darcy yesterday. The Cornelius family's company was indeed in big trouble. It needed a huge amount of capital to fill the gap. My father went to see him not to ask him to pay off the Cornelius family's debts. He just wanted to entrust me to him. The Cornelius family couldn't rise again. My father said I was an orphan, abandoned even before my umbilical cord was cut. He didn't want me to live a hard life anymore. He said that I had endured all the hardships of my life during those 2 days when I was left in the trash can, barely breathing. For the rest of my life, he would give me all the sweetness in the world. However, my mother told me that yesterday he didn't even get through the front door of the Clement family. He was turned away by the servants. I went to see Darcy today just to ask him that since I had been with him for 7 years, couldn't he at least show me a little bit of respect? Why did he have to humiliate my father like this? The dumplings had already gone cold. They were shriveled. I picked one up and ate it. They were my favorite 3 delicacy dumplings. Fragrant and sweet, but I couldn't stop crying as I ate. I shouldn't have left the hospital. I should have stayed by my father's side all the time. As long as he can get better, I'll never be willful again, and I'll never make him worry about me anymore. I drank a lot of wine today. Darcy's steps were a bit unsteady as he came home. When he entered the door and stood in the entrance hall, he instinctively called out, "Miranda." But all that responded to him was the emptiness and silence of the room. For a moment, he was in a trance. It took his dazed brain a while to realize that Miranda was still angry with him. She had been missing for 3 days already, although he didn't care about her at all. When he opened the shoe cabinet and saw the pink slippers placed in the corner, showing a hint of caution, an inexplicable feeling of restlessness welled up in his heart. This time, Miranda was acting a bit strangely. In the past, she had been angry before, but within half a day, she would always come back obediently and even try to coax him. She had never been gone for such a long time. Darcy casually threw the tie he had just pulled off onto the cabinet. When he changed into his slippers and walked inside, he couldn't control his temper and kicked the somewhat annoying pink slippers out of the shoe cabinet. But after walking a few steps, he turned back. He stared at the slippers for a while, and suddenly, as if thinking of something, he sneered. "She's got some nerve this time. She's changing her tactics and trying the playing hard to get trick now." It was rare for Darcy to crouch down with his haughty posture. When he condescended to put the pink slippers back into the shoe cabinet, he received a call from his buddy. "Darcy, Darcy, where are you now? Haven't you received the news yet? Miranda's father has passed away." Darcy was clearly taken aback. He stood up and instinctively walked towards the door. Miranda was clearly a real pest when it came to clinging to people. But recently, she had been so well behaved and restrained. So that's what happened. His buddy was silent for a moment, and then stammered. "Darcy, there's something else." "Well, I just heard from the Ronald family that Sister Nina is back in the country." "Miranda, the mess your father left behind is something that even a top noble family wouldn't dare to touch casually. Isn't your boyfriend the young master of the Clement family?" Exquisite and expensive dishes were being served into the private room one after another. But second uncle's brows were furrowed deeply, and even his hair seemed to convey his distress. He stared at my cheek that still faintly showed the marks of fingers and asked, "What, have you been bullied?" My nose suddenly felt sour. Tears almost welled up in my eyes. It had only been 3 days since my father passed away, but I had already experienced the warmth and coldness of human relationships in this circle. My spine was broken one by one. My dignity was also trampled into the dust and ground into ashes. The uncles who were usually kind and amiable had revealed their dark and terrifying true colors. Not only did they stand by and watch as those who benefited from their family bullied me, but they even added insult to injury. Miranda, since the Cornelius family is completely finished anyway, and someone else is still interested in you, don't be ungrateful. I resisted fiercely. I smashed the other person with a wine bottle. I was immediately pinned to the table and received 7 or 8 slaps. I was dizzy. My nosebleed was gushing. If it weren't for the kind-hearted waiter who secretly called the police for me, I think I might not have been able to get out of that dark and seedy private room yesterday. Why bother? Miranda. Although there was a hint of pity in second uncle's eyes when he looked at me, there was more indifference after weighing the pros and cons. The young master of the Clement family is a real cash cow. Put in some effort to coax him. Go and cry in front of him. It's better than running into walls everywhere among these low-class uncles. Seeing that I stubbornly stood where I was, second uncle added, Miranda, you've always been smart. Think it over carefully. Seeing that I still didn't say anything, second uncle looked at his watch. I don't know if the guests for the banquet were about to arrive, or if he thought I was too much of an eyesore. He motioned to his assistant to take out $3,000 in cash. How's your mother? Your father passed away suddenly, and I was on a business trip abroad. I couldn't come back to pay my respects yesterday. Take this money. It's a little something from me. I remained silent. I lowered my eyes and stared at the $3,000. I just felt it was blinding. Although the Cornelius family is indeed a hot potato, no one has the obligation to help anyone. However, a few years ago, when second uncle's company was in crisis and he came to my father for help, my father didn't hesitate to inject tens of millions of cash flow, which revitalized his company. I don't expect second uncle to be as unhesitating and unreserved as my father. I just hope that he can remember a little bit of the kindness my father showed him when he helped him. All he needs to do is reach out a little bit and give me some time to come up with a solution. But he tried to send me away with just $3,000. How ironic. In the bathroom, I splashed several handfuls of water on my face. I tried to calm down my sad emotions, but no matter how cold the water was, it still couldn't suppress the pain surging in my heart. I looked at those dishes carefully. Each dish cost more than $3,000. It was so humiliating. I looked at my sorry state in the mirror. My vision gradually blurred. I clearly wanted to hold back my tears, but the more I tried to hold them back, the more they welled up. I quickly raised my hand to wipe them away, but I accidentally touched my swollen and red cheek. A sharp pain shot through me. The smell of blood spread. There was a deep wound in my mouth, which was caused by the beating yesterday. It had been a day and a night, and it was still bleeding. If only my father were still alive. The status of the Cornelius family in the circle is, as Darcy's buddy sneered at me, not high, but very low. But I've been arrogant and unbridled since I was a child, and no one dared to mess with me, except that I was willing to endure everything for Darcy. At any other time, I had never suffered the slightest grievance. Now that he's gone, in this world, there's no one to protect me. There's no one to love me. I seem to have gone back to the day I was thrown into the trash can. I'm no longer a young lady, but just an unwanted and abandoned child who was hated from birth. In fact, the mockery and cold words from the Clements mean nothing, no matter how harsh or humiliating they are. I don't care. I'm just sad and blame myself for not being able to save my father's company or preserve his hard work. What should I do? The little white flower that had been hidden by the messy hair beside my ear suddenly fell off. It just landed in the water. Water droplets splashed on the petals, just like tears. I trembled my fingers and picked up the little white flower. I rolled up the corner of my clothes and carefully wiped it clean. Then I pressed it hard against my chest. I couldn't help but call out in my heart again and again, Dad, Dad, on the way out of the bathroom. After 5 years, I didn't expect to meet Nina. She stood in the corridor, and a faint halo surrounded her. When she saw me, there was a hint of surprise in her eyes at first, but then her eyes were filled with a smile, soft and gentle. However, I felt a strong chill, like a huge wave, surging towards me. uncontrollably. The image of the day I dizzily ended up in Darcy's bed flashed in my mind. And the glass of wine she handed me. When Darcy woke up and found me lying naked beside him, he flew into a great rage. In a fit of anger, he grabbed my neck. "Miranda, you're so shameless. How dare you scheme against me?" His eyes were red, full of murderous intent. His grip was so strong that it seemed he was going to strangle my neck. If it hadn't been for Nina pushing the door open at that moment, perhaps I really would have been killed by Darcy. Nina immediately ran out crying with red eyes. Darcy chased after her without even getting dressed properly. The next time I saw him was that night. The way he looked at me was even more bloodshot and terrifying. But his voice was eerily calm. "Miranda, do you want to be my girlfriend that badly? Using any means possible, without any regard for your dignity. Right. Fine. As you wish." Nina is Darcy's white moonlight, the person he holds dear in his heart. I accidentally heard his buddy chatting and learned that the engagement with Nina was something Darcy begged for by kneeling in the ancestral hall 3 times. Her family status is even lower than that of the Cornelius family. No, to be precise, the Ronald family is not even considered a third-rate family. Madame Clement, who always values family status, naturally looks down on them. But she couldn't oppose Darcy. For her sake, Darcy was willing to be removed from the family register and sever ties with the Clement family. He is the only heir of the Clement family. The Clement family is powerful. How could they not have an heir? After Nina ran out in a fit of anger that day, something happened to her. She went abroad 3 days later. It was only several years later that I belatedly realized that there was something wrong with that glass of wine. But I've never been able to figure out why Nina did that. Darcy loves her deeply. According to the degree of his infatuation with her, he would definitely marry her. This is a rare opportunity for the Ronald family to cross class barriers. So why would she foolishly send me to Darcy's bed? And at this moment, just a second ago, Nina was still smiling. But the next second, her eyes suddenly turned red. She took a few steps towards me. "Miranda, don't be too hostile towards me. You're already Darcy's girlfriend, the daughter-in-law recognized by his mother. Don't worry, I won't cause any trouble for you and Darcy." I was shocked and surprised, and I couldn't understand her act at all. I just instinctively wanted to avoid her touch. But Nina let out a cry and fell heavily to the ground. Instantly, her eyes were filled with tears and her voice trembled. "Miranda, you don't have to come all the way to the place where I'm having a meal to deliberately humiliate me. Darcy and I are in the past. I beg you, don't force me to leave. I haven't seen my parents for a long time. I just came back to have a few meals with them and I'll leave in a couple of days." I was really startled by Nina's actions. As soon as a bad premonition welled up in my heart, Darcy's furious voice exploded. "Miranda, you're courting death." A great force pushed me hard against the wall of the corridor, and I immediately heard the clear sound of my shoulder bone dislocating. The pain was sharp and piercing. "Darcy, don't be angry. Miranda didn't mean it. She just likes you too much. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have come back to the country. I should have stayed abroad obediently. She didn't mean it." Would she have stripped naked and shamelessly lain in my bed if she didn't mean it? I've already seen those despicable and disgusting tricks of hers. Darcy bent down and picked Nina up. His eyes were cold, as if poisoned. "Miranda, I'll only say this once. If you dare to use scheming methods to hurt Nina again, I will never let you or the remaining members of the Cornelius family off." The remaining members of the Cornelius family refer to my mother. Right. I stood numbly in the empty corridor, watching Darcy's back as he carried Nina away. Nina curled up in his arms and cried. Her crying was soft and faint, but it was extremely pitiful. Darcy was heartbroken. "Where does it hurt? Hold on. I'll take you to the hospital right away." The huge impact caused the wound in my mouth to open again. My entire mouth was filled with blood. Blood seeped out slightly at the corner of my mouth. However, Darcy didn't notice at all. He only cared about protecting the one he held dear. I swallowed gently. Then I raised the corners of my mouth and smiled faintly, as if I had let go. The infatuation that had been deeply ingrained in my soul since I was young vanished in an instant, like the sand slipping through my fingers that couldn't be held back, finally disappearing with the wind. That night, I sat on the stone steps at the entrance for a very long time, holding my phone. I repeatedly entered a phone number, but I never had the courage to dial it. on the day my father passed away, when I was still by his side in the hospital. He asked, "Miranda, do you still remember Byron?" I was peeling an apple at that time and didn't respond. After waiting for a moment, my father said again, "I heard that the Arnold family is doing very well now. They should have really risen up." I naturally understood my father's underlying meaning. When necessary, I could seek help from the Arnold family. But how could I have the nerve? I hurt Byron so deeply back then. The annulment of the engagement between our two families caused such an embarrassing scene. It was already showing mercy to our two families' relationship that they didn't take advantage of our plight and step on me. How could he help me? In the end, I still didn't make that call. My mother must be ill. Every night, she would wake up at the slightest sound, and then hug the clothes that still carried my father's scent and cry. She was in a state of lethargy every day. Her appetite was also very poor. I wanted to take a taxi to her favorite time-honored pastry shop to buy chestnut cakes for her. As soon as I got into the taxi, the nanny called me. Her voice was very urgent, filled with endless panic and fear. "Miranda, Miranda, your mother is gone." I just went to the kitchen to serve her chicken soup, and when I came out, I couldn't find her. Could something have happened to her? "Miranda." I panicked instantly. While asking the nanny if she had checked the rooftop, I urged the taxi driver to drive faster. The nanny said that she had searched everywhere in the villa, inside and out, but still couldn't find my mother. I begged the driver to drive even faster. "My mother has a strong intention of committing suicide. I've already lost my father. I can't lose her too." Seeing that I was about to cry, the driver comforted me while driving at the fastest speed. Just as we were about to arrive home, I suddenly thought of something and gave the driver a new address. I indeed found my mother at the cemetery. It was the height of summer in August, but she was wearing my father's suit jacket. She was a small and thin figure kneeling in front of the tombstone. Hearing the commotion, she turned her face slightly. When she saw it was me, she cried pitifully, "Miranda, your father won't come back. We don't have a home anymore." My mother's appearance is not exceptionally beautiful, but she was well taken care of by my father. Even at the age of 50, she didn't have any white hair and had very few wrinkles. But in just 3 days, she aged instantly. I gently hugged her, trying my best to hold back my sobs, and coaxed her in a low voice. "Mom, you still have me. I'll take good care of you. We have a home. But I haven't seen your father for several days." "Oh, no. I saw him at night, when I just woke up. I clearly remember that he was cooking for us in the kitchen. It was his signature lotus root and spare rib dish." Tears blurred my eyes. I was engulfed by great sadness and dull pain. I was so suffocated that I couldn't breathe. But I couldn't fall apart. I couldn't even be dragged down by the whirlpool of emotions. I still have to protect the woman my father loved the most. In a soft voice, like I was treating a child, I carefully coaxed my mother for a long time. Only then was she willing to go back with me. "It's just that the cemetery is in a remote area, and it's not easy to get a taxi." So I held my mother and walked towards the intersection where online taxis were willing to take orders. Just then, a car drove towards us. The car lights were too bright. I was blinded by the light and raised my hand to block it. But my mother in my arms suddenly rushed out. "Miranda, Miranda, it's your father's car. It's your father. He's come to pick us up." The rain came suddenly and heavily, but it still couldn't put out the white smoke coming from the Rolls-Royce whose front end was severely deformed after hitting a tree. My mother was shocked. "Why isn't it your father? You know that he has an identical car. Why isn't it him?" She fell to the ground and sobbed loudly. I stood in the torrential rain, watching the driver holding a black umbrella and standing by the rear car door. The car window was rolling down. He handed a handkerchief inside. When he took it out again, it was already stained with blood. My body temperature dropped rapidly. In my ears, the noisy sound of the rain and my mother's mournful crying all disappeared. In my eyes, there was only the front of the car that was dented in by more than half, and the blood on the handkerchief. How could I afford to compensate for a car worth tens of millions? The Cornelius family is already in a precarious situation. I can't even imagine the consequences of offending someone in a high and powerful position. The driver walked towards me with an umbrella. His face was terrifyingly gloomy and stern. "If you want to commit suicide, don't drag others down with you. Max." A voice of admonition came from the back seat of the car. It wasn't very loud, It was gentle, very pleasant to hear. The driver immediately dared not say anything more. But in an instant, I felt as if I had fallen into a world of ice and snow, and the blood in my body froze. My mother was helped into the car by the driver to take shelter from the rain. I still stood there without moving. "Miranda." A voice came from the car again. It was in a commanding tone, full of displeasure. It was Byron. Over the years, the scene of Byron wearing a hospital gown, with red eyes and almost pleading in his tone, has always lingered in my mind. It was also raining that day, although it wasn't heavy, but it was autumn. Each raindrop was bone-chillingly cold. He stood in the misty rain, and the dark and gray sky behind him was like a huge net of sadness, trapping him firmly. "Miranda, can you not annul the engagement? Give me some time. I won't let you live a hard life." How did I answer him? Every word pierced his heart, killing him invisibly. It turns out that in this world, what goes around comes around. Retribution may be late, but it will always come. I still got into the car. I didn't dare to look in Byron's direction. The light in the car was very dim, but the powerful aura emanating from Byron made it impossible to ignore him. It was the oppression that only those in high positions possess. In the end, I couldn't help but take a glance in his direction. He was wearing black clothes and black pants, looking solemn and cold. His facial features were obscured by the shadows in the car, blurry, yet those eyes were shining brightly black. I felt flustered for no reason. My body couldn't stop trembling. Byron seemed to glance at me. After a few seconds, he leaned slightly to turn on the warm air. He found that it was broken. Then he rummaged through the storage box and took out a soft towel, draping it over my shoulders. I was startled. I instinctively tried to break free, but Byron suddenly held me down. "Are you really afraid of me?" I widened my eyes, trying to see Byron's expression clearly, because he leaned closer. In the dim light and shadow, his straight nose and thin lips were of a captivating appearance, and his deep eyes and brows didn't show the condescension and schadenfreude that I had imagined. They were even very gentle. I wanted to say something, but before I could open my mouth, a phone call suddenly came in. I just glanced at the number on the screen and quickly hung up. It was a debt collector. The phone calls from debt collectors are always bombarding. I didn't want to completely expose my current embarrassment and distress in front of Byron, whom I had abandoned, so I wanted to turn off my phone. However, a message came in first, followed by a video. The nerves in my brain seemed to disconnect all of a sudden. My mind went blank. I didn't even know what I was doing. When I regained consciousness a little, I was running towards my father's cemetery, and Byron was dragging me. "Miranda, what's wrong?" "Someone dug up my father's grave." "In the hospital." My mother was sent to the emergency room. I sat on the bench, holding my father's urn, and stroked the broken cracks on it with my trembling fingers over and over again. My heart felt like it had a hole in it, and it was bleeding. When Byron came back and saw my eyes were red and tears were rolling down like beads off a broken string, he softened his voice to comfort me. "It's okay, Miranda." Of course I knew it was okay. His assistant didn't follow us to the hospital. He stayed at the cemetery to deal with the follow-up matters, before Byron sent my mother and me to the hospital. From a distance, I heard him give instructions to his assistant in a calm but extremely cold tone. "Transfer all the money without missing a single cent. But the person who touched the Cornelius family's grave won't get away with it so easily." I looked up at Byron. It was easy to see the worry and pity in his eyes, especially when he noticed the finger marks on my face that hadn't faded yet. His eyes darkened. My tears, which had already broken the dam, flowed even more violently. "Why, Byron, I hurt you so much back then." It was more appropriate to say it was a betrayal rather than just a hurt. Before I met Darcy, I actually accepted the engagement with Byron by default. He was gentle and elegant, handsome, and from a good family. Except that he was too introverted and a bit not good at speaking. There was nothing to fault about him. However, I was blinded by lust. I went back on my word. I made a huge scene 3 times in order to break off the engagement. I made the Arnold family lose all face in City A. They had no place to stand in the city. Finally, they had to move back to their ancestral hometown. Why? Byron had an outstanding figure. Yet he bent his straight waist for me, while gently stroking the little white flower pinned beside my ear. He said in a soft voice, "Miranda, of course it's because of you. Fortunately, It was just a false alarm. My mother woke up soon. My mother and I were settled by Byron in his newly purchased house. The doctor said that my mother's mental state was very poor and she couldn't be stimulated anymore. I was worried that if I took her back to my father's villa, the sight of the place would bring back sad memories and her condition would worsen. On the first day of moving in, I suffered from insomnia. I tossed and turned but couldn't fall asleep. I finally managed to fall into a deep sleep. But then I had a dream. I dreamed of the scene of breaking off the engagement with Byron for the last time. I hysterically shouted at him, "Byron, your father was convicted of corruption and has been imprisoned. How can the son of a corrupt official be worthy of me? I feel disgusted when I see you. I feel sick just thinking about your face. Can you stop pestering me and leave me alone?" The school's broadcasting room was illuminated by the bright afternoon sun, shining with a golden light. But the light in Byron's eyes and all his emotions were extinguished in an instant and returned to a deathly stillness. He left. He never looked back. And it was only after I returned to the classroom that I realized the broadcast hadn't been turned off. Everyone in the school knew about his father's imprisonment and the fact that he had been pestering me. Suddenly, I felt a great deal of pain in my heart. It was like being stabbed by a knife. When I woke up, I found that my pillow was soaked with tears. The continuous rain finally stopped. The sunlight spilled in through the French windows. It enveloped me. I had a feeling of rebirth after a disaster. I felt dazed. My mother's laughter faintly reached my ears. I put on my slippers and went out. Byron and my mother were exchanging culinary skills. I didn't know what nice things Byron had said, but he had made my mother beam with joy. This was the first time I had seen her smile since my father passed away. I had originally thought that she would never smile again. "Miranda, you're awake. Come and stop Byron. His mouth is full of sweet words, and I can't stand it anymore." My mother waved at me. I quickly walked over. Byron was wearing casual home clothes. He had shed the strict and stern look of his formal attire. He seemed more lazy and easygoing. He was stewing chicken soup. He quietly took a bowl, filled it with half a bowl of soup, and then carefully selected some pieces of chicken for a while before pushing the bowl in front of me. My mother looked at the contents of the bowl. "Didn't we agree that the drumsticks were mine? Why are both drumsticks in Miranda's bowl? You're being blatantly partial. I'm going to be in a bad mood again." Byron gracefully handed me a soup spoon. "The dishes later are the real main courses. Let her eat her fill first. Otherwise she might your food later." But when my mother said he was partial, I blushed. Byron really knew how to please my mother. He knew exactly how to win her favor without being greasy or deliberate. I suddenly thought of the scene where my father went to see Darcy but was stopped at the door. At this moment, I deeply realized, the person who truly cares about you will also value your family. My eyes felt sour. I felt like crying. I wanted to turn my face away and wait for the wetness in my eyes to fade away. But Byron said, "I gave you all the drumsticks. Why are you still feeling wronged?" The day before the formal meeting between the parents of both sides, Darcy organized a gathering. He drank a bit too much. He went to the bathroom. When he came back, he heard them making a bet. "Do you think that if Miranda finds out that Darcy is going to formally meet Nina's parents tomorrow, how will she throw a tantrum? I bet $200,000. She will definitely come charging in here within 40 minutes. Who are you looking down on? Based on how much she fawns over Darcy, I bet she'll be here within 20 minutes. Anyway, we're bored. Why don't we send her a video and have some fun?" I'll send it. I want to be the first to see her go crazy." But as soon as the video of the gathering was sent, he was blocked by Miranda. Is Miranda out of her mind? Knowing that Darcy and sister Nina are about to get engaged and being so heartbroken that she's lost her mind. She actually dared to block me. Doesn't she want to know Darcy's whereabouts from me in the future? I was blocked too. Me too. Someone was indignant and wanted to go out to borrow a phone from the waiter to call Miranda again. But they saw Darcy standing at the door. His face was gloomy. The cigarette between his fingers had a long ash that he hadn't flicked off. "Darcy, what are you doing standing at the door?" "That Miranda. She. Why call her? Do you think my life is too peaceful and want her to come here and cause me trouble?" The next day, Nina wore a very beautiful mermaid-style long dress. Her hair was exquisitely braided. Her makeup was perfect. But Darcy seemed a bit absent-minded. He even kept looking at the time frequently during the meal with the parents of both sides. The news that he was having a meal with Nina's parents was indeed successfully sent to Miranda by Tangli last night. According to her personality, she definitely wouldn't remain indifferent, even though her father had passed away and she no longer had the confidence she used to have. She liked him so much. Could she really just watch him marry someone else? Thinking of the crazy and out-of-line things she had done out of jealousy in the past, Darcy's faintly uneasy heart seemed to calm down a bit. Naturally, he was worried that Miranda would come and cause a scene. Even before Nina's parents arrived at the hotel, he had repeatedly instructed Tangli, be on strict guard. She absolutely couldn't be allowed to barge in. However, until the meal was over, there was no sign of any trouble. At the entrance of the hotel, when Darcy was seeing his parents off in the car, Nina saw that his face was not looking good and immediately her eyes welled up with tears. She asked pitifully, "Darcy, do you not want to marry me anymore?" When Darcy came to his senses, he saw tears glistening in Nina's eyes. Her small and round nose was even slightly red, making her look especially pitiful. "How could that be? You're just overthinking it. But you didn't smile once during the whole meal. Darcy, if you can't let go of Miranda, we can stop this right now." Darcy not only felt irritated but also angry. When he got home and saw the daily necessities that Miranda had left behind, his anger flared up even more. He smashed and threw things around. When I received Darcy's call, Byron had just taken a shower and walked out of my room. He said that the shower head in his room was broken. My mother was using the public bathroom outside. He had taken a shower and was in a hurry to attend a video conference. But I didn't know if he did it on purpose. He actually came out without getting dressed, only wearing a bath towel around his waist. I didn't even dare to look. In my memory, Byron had always been tall, but he was quite thin. However, after taking off his clothes, his body was incredibly fit. To make matters worse, he kept looking for the hairdryer and kept walking back and forth in front of me. I blushed and reminded him that the hairdryer was on the washstand. But he said seriously, "Oh, I didn't notice." Me? Darcy got straight to the point and asked me, "Miranda, when are you coming to pick up those pieces of junk you left in my house? Don't leave them here to annoy Nina." I instinctively bit my lip. I just felt it was ridiculous. It turned out that after 7 years of love and pursuit, I had given my heart and soul to Darcy. I had been spurned by everyone for him. But in his eyes, I was just trash. Fortunately, I didn't care anymore. Any of his humiliating words couldn't hurt me anymore. Just throw them away. "What did you say, Miranda?" I said. "Since they are trash, they should be thrown away." Darcy on the other end of the phone seemed to be very angry. I heard him sneering. I thought it was very strange. Logically speaking, he hated me so much that now that he had finally gotten rid of my entanglement, he should be eager to get rid of everything related to me. Staying with anything of mine for even a second would be disrespectful to his deep loathing of me. So what was the point of this phone call? "Miranda, listen carefully. I'll only say this once. Nina and I are going to get engaged." Darcy comforted himself. It must be that the video Tangli sent last night was too noisy, and I didn't hear him clearly. 7 years. Not 7 days. Not 7 months. But a full 7 years. I used to be so fond of making a scene and being jealous. He didn't believe that I would really not care at all. He was certain that this was a tactic of mine to retreat in order to advance. Darcy was just about to say, "Miranda, you've become smarter and your tactics are more sophisticated. You've successfully stirred up my emotions." However, on the phone, I said in an extremely calm and sincere tone, "Congratulations, Mr. Clement. You've finally achieved your wish. I wish you happiness. I overestimated myself in the past and caused you trouble. I will definitely not do that again in the future." Before Darcy could say anything more, I hung up the phone directly. It was already late at night. I stood by the window and smelled the faint fragrance of flowers in the wind. The haze was blown away. I felt an unprecedented sense of ease. I belatedly realized, what was the necessary connection between Byron coming to my room to take a shower and being in a hurry to attend a video conference? Couldn't he wait until the conference was over to take a shower? Why did he have to take a shower before that? Of course, on the other side that I didn't know about, Darcy was going crazy with anger. Like a storm passing through, he threw all my things out of the door, including my pair of pink slippers. But, in the end, he was so spineless that he picked them back up. Byron seemed to be extremely busy. He didn't come back for nearly half a month. My mother's condition was still fluctuating. He hired the best medical team for her and had her stay in the hospital for treatment. In the huge house, I was the only one living there, and it felt empty. On the day of the heavy rain in early September, there was a sudden power outage. When I was repeatedly flipping the circuit breaker in the utility room at the door, I heard some movement at the door. There stood a tall black shadow at the door. I let out a scream, but I was pressed against the wall by the other person. Everything seemed to be spinning. My heart was pounding like thunder. I instinctively wanted to fight back, but after smelling the clean and refreshing familiar scent that surrounded me, I gradually calmed down. I was a bit angry, and a bit aggrieved. Byron, you scared me. The other person was stunned for a moment, and then let out a soft laugh. It is said that in a dark environment, if the eyes can't see clearly, the other senses will be infinitely magnified. It was true. The faint laughter, mixed with the rumbling thunder and the pitter-patter of the rain, could almost be ignored. However, I thought it was especially pleasant to hear. It tugged at my heartstrings. He should have been lowering his head. The hot breath he exhaled landed on my ear. My heart immediately started fluttering like a deer. The aura that enveloped me carried a faint smell of alcohol. Have you been drinking? Yeah, Miranda. I'm a bit sad. What, if I don't come back? Do you never think of me on your own? Byron, 16 days and 7 hours. And you didn't even send me a single message. I was afraid of disturbing you. That's an excuse. Miranda, do you still not like me? No. Byron, I like you. I suddenly liked him very much. For no reason. It was like barren soil encountering sweet dew. And the seeds in the cracks grew wildly and uncontrollably. I was pressed onto Byron's soft bed by him. He kissed me. At first, it was wild and intense, and later it gradually became gentle and tender. He seemed to have taken my soul away. Obviously he had already fallen in love, but Byron didn't take the next step. I tried to undo his belt, but he held my hand down. I suddenly remembered the words that Darcy's group of friends had sneered at me with. Miranda, your reputation is already completely ruined. No other man would want you. Did Byron also dislike me? I was a bit hurt. I felt so wronged that I wanted to cry, but he suddenly lowered his head and gently kissed the corner of my eye. Miranda, your father passed away not long ago. It's not appropriate to do this kind of thing now. My tears immediately burst out like a flood. Through the overly large French windows, the lights from the distance shone in. In the dim light, when Byron saw that I suddenly couldn't stop crying, he immediately panicked. He hurriedly wiped my tears while calling my name and asking me what was wrong. He even asked if he had kissed me too hard just now and hurt me. I sniffed. Then I raised the corners of my mouth and said to him, Byron, my head is a bit itchy. Byron thought this was a bit strange, but he still asked if I wanted him to scratch it for me. However, I reached out and wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling his slightly propped-up body back down. I must have fallen in love again. Byron, if I'm infatuated with you, you can't treat me badly. Byron couldn't help laughing. His dark eyes were filled with tenderness and affection. Miss Cornelius. The ancestral motto of the Arnold family is that a person can only have one wife in their lifetime. Since I've decided on you, it can only be you. Would you like to come home with me? The day the news that the debts of the Cornelius group had been cleared and the company had been revitalized hit the trending topics. Darcy had just had a huge argument with Nina. He accidentally saw the chat record between Nina and a man on her overseas social app. Only then did he understand that she didn't go abroad to seek medical treatment at all that year. And that accident was just a trick she had staged herself. She was going to elope with her first love, but she was afraid that her first love was too flirtatious and would get tired of her and abandon her. So she planted a thorn in his heart, making him feel guilty and blame himself, and willing to be the one to take the blame. Moreover, Miranda ending up in his bed was also a scheme she had masterminded. She not only put medicine in Miranda's drink but also in his. When Darcy saw the trending topic about the Cornelius family, he realized that Miranda and Byron were together again. He immediately called Miranda. His fingers were even trembling a bit, but the other side didn't answer for a long time. It was only on the 5th call that her voice came through. It was very indifferent, but it was obviously impatient. Darcy was momentarily stunned. It took him a while to get to the point. Do you think Byron really likes you? No man can be completely indifferent to a woman who has betrayed him. This is my personal business and has nothing to do with you. Miranda, I'm kindly reminding you. Don't be used and then cruelly abandoned. You'll have plenty to cry about then. Are you talking about yourself? Darcy, it's because you're so dark and disgusting that you think all men are like you, who only know how to play with other people's feelings and trample on their sincerity. Byron is different from you. Even if he plays with me, uses me, or even takes revenge on me, I'm willing. Miranda, you're incredibly stupid. The call was hung up. Darcy listened to the rapid, busy tone on the other end. He slowly lowered his eyelids. After a long time, he said to himself, Nina and I didn't get engaged. I broke up with her. Completely. Miranda, I regret it. Can you accept me again and love me again? How could Darcy understand? Only those who have truly fallen into the darkness know the power of the beam of light that falls on them. It's not just light, it's redemption. When I went downstairs, the nanny told me that Byron was back. Since I followed him back to his ancestral hometown, he had been very busy, but no matter how late he came back, the first thing he did was to see me, but he wasn't to be found today. I searched everywhere, inside and out. Finally, I found him in the study. He was holding a writing brush and writing my name stroke by stroke in the Arnold family genealogy. He had worked overtime continuously for a whole week to revitalize the Cornelius group. There were red bloodshot eyes in his eyes. I felt extremely sad. I asked him why he didn't let the housekeeper do it for him. From the slightly ajar door came the mocking laughter of Darcy's cronies. The day before my wedding with Byron, the whole Arnold family was extremely busy, but he took me to the airport. I was very puzzled. There are still so many trivial matters to deal with for the wedding tomorrow. Where are you taking me? He took my hand and step by step climbed up the ladder of the private jet flying to City A. I have to let your father see if the precious daughter he entrusted to me has been taken good care of by me. Many years later, I found out that my father had called Byron the day he came back from the Clement family. Despite losing his dignity, he entrusted me to Byron. Byron's reply to him was extremely brief. Just a single word. Okay. And I once thought that after my father passed away, my mother and I would become rootless wandering souls. It was only when I met Byron again that I realized, once the soul is loved, the flesh and blood will grow wildly. His love allowed me to rebuild my body, and from then on, I was no longer wandering. The end.